Are there any further questions on the team canvas or any points in the discussion today?
Melissa, there was a suggestion by Benjamin that it would be great to see or receive a completed canvas.
Sure.
So we do have time, so I don't know if maybe we can go back to the canvas and then maybe get some people to jump in and make suggestions on what they would complete under their reason to exist or what their value proposition is. The values, I think, is a nice one as well, and so on. That might help also with some questions. We do have some time available, if you don't mind, Melissa.
Sure. All right, so
Martina is asking, Martina is asking, over and above Pietro, who says aliens would be cool. We all have our issues, Pietro. Martina is asking how to motivate volunteer teamwork. I think that's quite a topical one for now as well. Hey, Melissa?
So I would go back to intrinsic motivation and back to the purpose and values. When you find, in the world today, it's not even in our country, in the world today, you have a lot of people that are in the wrong jobs, doing the wrong things at the wrong times. And if you have to think about my point earlier on, when it comes to the way that why people do what they do and the energy that they expend. When you think about your own life and the energy that you are using in your day, how much of that energy is spent on doing things that you actually like? And when you are expending your energy on things that you actually like, then it doesn't matter whether you take 4 hours, whether you take 4 days, you want to do it because you are feeling like you belong to something, to a higher purpose. You are then you're willing to give your time, effort, and most importantly, your energy. A great example is if you think about soldiers that are going off to a war. Yes, they're getting a salary, but at the end of the day, why are they dying for their country? They believe in something so much that they're willing to give their lives to this purpose. And yes, we can have another discussion on the ethics behind war and all of those things. But the principle for this discussion is they believe in something so much. Now, when it comes to volunteer work and nonprofit organizations, the same would apply. People have to have the same purpose. They have to have the same kind of belief system or believe that they are making that change. And I find that in teams, and this actually goes across the board for teams. I'll tell you another story, a quick story about a team who really, they didn't want to get involved and do any work. And the minute that I ran a campaign called a What's Your Why campaign. So we had a whiteboard and we gave everybody sticky notes and we just told them, today we want you to write down your why. Why do you wake up in the morning? And everybody wrote down their whys and they put it up on the board and people had different things. I want to make a difference in other people's lives. I wake up for my children. I want to progress in life. But once we got to see all the different whys, you could then see where they tied in to what they were doing at work. And the second the second part of that story was we then created a belonging campaign where people could actually see the difference that they were making. A lot of the time, people don't buy into what it is that they're doing if they don't see, that they can't see it. And they say that some people, if you're a kid in school and the teacher said to you, you need to color in between the lines, and they put a jar in the front with all these sweeties inside. Were you that kid that saw the jar and said, I want that jar, and then made sure they tried their best? Or did you have the feeling of saying, that was the instruction, so I need to do my best because I need to follow the instruction? Or did you just do it because you wanted to do it? Or did you just color outside the line and not care? It's the
It,
same with people.
yeah. Excellent examples you shared, Melissa. Craig, I know you would like to add to that.
Sorry, I was on mute. Yeah, Melissa's actually covered quite a bit of it, so great response. But the thought that came to mind immediately with Martina's question was belonging to a tribe, so a community with common purpose. So, I mean, if you think about why we want to democratize entrepreneurship and how we're doing it, we're trying to build a community with common purpose where we all help each other to progress and perform better and achieve more, which you can't possibly do on your own. So it's really about having that community and that tribe that really resonates with the purpose, the point about why, so that you're transforming and working to some massive goal that is kind of a moonshot. Is a bit of a summary of what I think Melissa said.
Yeah, no, that's great. Melissa, please, sorry, I would like to take you back to your canvas, because I know there is still some conversation that can happen around that. Just to summarize that point, I think, Melissa, and would you agree with the following statement I'm going to make? If you're not clear on that why, everything else that follows in this canvas could fail. Whether it's defining your value proposition, I know, and I did yield this in my goal setting course, if that why is not clearly understand, you will not succeed in your goals. If that goes to capabilities, etc. Is that a valid statement?
100%.
Okay.
If you are not clear as to why you're doing this, and I always I see people that are trying out new businesses and trying out new things, but they're just trying it because somebody told them to try it. And I mean, it even goes to people when I do career planning. You find a lot of people saying, "Oh, I need to do IT," and they didn't understand what IT is. But if you don't understand what difference are you going to make in this world by doing this particular course, by doing any activity, the reason for it, you're never going to be intrinsically motivated to do it. You're not necessarily going to care whether it gets done or not, and it's not going to get done with quality.
Right. Thank you. Alistair earlier made a comment that perhaps this canvas could also be used as a transition from current to new world value proposition and team to test with current teams and new onboarders. So also good orientation tool for new joiners. And I know you did touch on that, Melissa. And then, Alistair, you also referred to maybe a team culture, and it can be used as a team culture and happiness index. I don't know if you would like to join us, Alistair, and talk a little bit more about that comment of yours.
Hey, Liesl, can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Thank you.
Great. Just a really short comment there. I think what I really appreciated is that if I were to take this canvas and introduce new people to a team or a business, when you hear the word happiness index, I get excited. It's not like a payroll, an org structure, and computers and systems and that kind of things. It's just those two words opens it up immediately. And I think what I was getting at behind that is to say, current team, whoever you are, if you're transitioning out of a difficult world into a new kind of digitized, super fast world, how do we do this together? Number one. And then the new people that come in, it's not like it's difficult to orientate. We're starting with happiness. And how are you going to help build that? Which is such a positive kind of point of view in terms of when you engage people compared to a traditional lean canvas or EXO or business model canvas. So that's kind of what I thought of how I might want to use this one pager.
Oh, thanks.
Awesome.
Thank
and
you for sharing that. Yes.
Liesl, there's a question from Atef.
Atef,
Yeah,
yes.
okay, cool.
Melissa, Tiff is asking, which team is more effective, a heterogeneous or a homogeneous team? Pardon for my Afrikaans pronunciations of those very big words, and why?
Look, the world has, I wouldn't even say is changing. It's a new place. All the old rules are gone out the window. But when you think about your business and the context, and you look at the work streams, the first thing that you're going to have to do is to look at whether you need the people to do the work for you, like now and while you are there, or can that work be outsourced? When you look at business process automation, the same thing happens. If I have to share a quick example, it would be looking at people that are doing remote work now. Do you need to have the people in the same company, because they're not sitting in the same space? So when you need to have people in the same space, because and it could be in productivity environments, so manufacturing industries, that kind of thing, where you need people to work together, and even in those instances you can still have contract workers, but more often than not, as we transition in productivity and manufacturing environments, those kind of environments work better when you have people that are in the same company. For all other organizations and all other companies, and for entrepreneurship in this day and age, I would argue that staff on demand is actually the way to go and the best possible approach. I do think that freelancing is the way of the future, and that as more and more companies now start to downscale, you'll find them looking at contracting opportunities and freelancing as we go along. And that's just my opinion on this.
Thank you very much, Melissa. Before I go to Guy's comment, Andre Young, you've raised your hand. Would you like to join us?
Thank you. I was typing the question to Melissa. Melissa, when I look at the team canvas and the link to happiness, I must say I'm quite excited by the idea that you start to examine the identity of the team and all of the attributes that go with that. When I look at the values list that you shared, I get very excited, because that gives one a sort of guiding light to the virtues that should manifest into behavior to create the happiness. My question to you is, in the execution of this team canvas, have you got any thoughts around how we can start to identify individual identity? Because we're finding now, and I'm reading Jay Shetty and I'm reading Simon Sinek and all these boys that have got lovely ideas, that individual identity, until that is properly understood by individuals, struggle to then come to purpose. So you give them the great purpose, the MTP that drives organizations. But when they can't see their own identity, they struggle to get to their individual purpose and then be a collective part of the efficacy of an EXO, for example. So your thoughts on how faulty thinking on individual identity, so that they might come to these values. They might come to being turned on by the MTP that organizations have. I'll listen in silence.
Thanks for that. Yes, it's an extremely good question and an important one. So individual values or personal values. When you have a person in a team that can understand what their individual values are, then they will understand as to whether they're a fit to the team. In the example that I shared, where we got everybody to put down their whys, we found that there was actually a 5% of the people left within a 3-month cycle, because they then realized that their why and the company's why didn't match. And there again, you're going to have to ask yourself, do you want people in the organization or in your company or in your team that doesn't correspond to your why and doesn't match? The same goes for values. If you're going to have somebody, if integrity is important to you and somebody lies all the time and they're late all the time, or they have like lots of grannies that have funerals, then you're going to have to rethink that particular point. And when I do workshops with just on the values, like I said, it's a long it's actually a program where individuals have to decide on what their values are, as well as what the company decides on what their values are, and then you have the sort of merge or fit, and that's how you build culture in the team and engagement. I also have to put a disclaimer on to people that when I do this, I'm not always keen to share the personal values, because I find from experience people want to go home and do this value exercise with their spouses. And we all are living today remotely and in confined spaces. Please, with great power comes great responsibilities. Do not take the personal values and say, see, I knew you didn't have integrity. This is why. This is what happens, people. It's real. So I hope I've added some value to your question.
Yeah.
Can add to, go for it, Craig. I know we might want to bring up the same point.
Talk about the same thing. Yeah, we've used a tool. We've used a tool called an ecometric, which helps people define what they call personal driving dynamics, and it's pretty effective because it is a psychometric or psychologically, statistically founded mechanism that you answer a whole lot of questions, and it helps you see what drives you. And then you can share that at your discretion with management, with your teams, etc. It's quite an effective tool for addressing the sort of view that Andre was raising. Liesl, you actually did the training, so you're welcome to add to that.
There's not much to add to that, but it's very important to understand the personal driving dynamics of your team members, and then how you introduce that into the different roles in your organization. So as an example, my top driving dynamic is learning. And then it goes down to that, and Melissa shared that administration is one of her worst things. So I'm not going to appoint Melissa into an administrative kind of position. I'll appoint her into more of a inspire and motivate the team. I would like to come back to Guy's comment, Melissa. It's actually a question from Guy. Have you had any experience with the Workplace Challenge Program of Productivity South Africa? So Guy has a lot of experience in quite a few things. So maybe if you can answer that question. I don't know, Guy, whether there was more to your question. Maybe you would like to come in quickly. That's Guy Harris.
Is Guy gonna?
Guy, are you still here? Are you muted?
Sorry,
Guy?
I'm still here, but I've just listened to Melissa's answer, so Bell went through a major change, had to go through a lot of changes, and we went from what we called a brain tree organization, where we asked people when they clocked in to leave their brains outside and only bring their hands, to an organization that was very much involved in getting the ideas from all of the employees on improvements and how to do things better. So very much self-directed work teams, participatory, etc.
So yes, not in this particular, the challenge program that you're mentioning, but I have had experiences with self-directed teams, transitioning people into self-directed teams, and also transitioning people into different business models. So from an in-sourced to an outsourced, as well as productivity environments. And I think that having people engage with the work that they do, and then being able to innovate or share. And when we talk about collaborate, innovation is one of those things. How do you listen to people so that they can help you get the job done quicker, better, faster? And it's the incremental things that actually make a very big difference. So yes, innovation is, I think, extremely key in 2021. Being able to listen and engage with people and value their ideas. And for me, it doesn't matter the kind of environment. You could have a blue collar environment versus a white collar. It actually doesn't matter. Innovation is supposed to be something that's part and parcel, and some would argue in a way that we have that intrinsically as a need in humans to have challenges and to be able to overcome challenges.
Okay.
Thank you, Melissa. Thank you, Guy. And then the last question, it comes from Gwen, and that was really a follow on Andre's point from earlier. And it's a very valid point that Gwen is raising here. How do we then develop confidence within our team and to participate as equals? Because that is quite an interesting comment in terms of having a lean, dynamic, successful, high-performing team. And I think it goes to confidence, etc. But Melissa, please have a go at
Sure.
Gwen's question there.
So, there's so many things around this particular thing, and it could be, depending on who the team is and the history, etc. There could be many things that drive the lack of confidence in people or in teams. But if I could generalize an answer, it would be, number one, does everybody get equal talk time? Is there trust in the team? Because if there's trust, then people feel safe. And I think being able to build psychological safety in teams is extremely important for confidence building. And then also the carrot and stick approach. When you do something wrong, you get rapped on the knuckles. And if you're constantly getting rapped on the knuckles, then will you feel confident to do what you're doing? So how we, performance manage people, how we engage with them, is all of those things are extremely important and relate to being able to have confidence. It could be something that an individual is experiencing in their personal lives that are adding value, and then I think we've got Lloyd on, so he may be able to answer better from a psychology perspective. But I think from a team perspective and just, general confidence, in my experience, teams that have gotten wrapped on the knuckles a lot of the times and who live in a dictatorship environment, so when there's autocratic leadership and no enabling functions, you find teams lack general confidence.
Yeah. Great, thank you very much for that. Lloyd, you've made quite a few comments, and I think it's very valuable for you just to come in and talk to your comments. And as it also touches on this point, it will be very valuable for everybody. Lloyd?
Can you hear me?
Yes, thank you.
All right, there we go. Hi, everyone. Yeah, so I'm just pulling up my chats just so I know what I'm talking about. That first point, and I think Melissa was touched on it throughout, and just that last comment again, just that all teams are comprised of individuals, and I work from the premise that all dynamics are based on relationships, and 100% we've got to review how these relationships are managed. Are teams and people in the team seen as individuals and treated as individuals? Because if they're not, well, people are going to retreat to their own personal default, and whether that's retreating into their shells or lashing out because that's their defense mechanism, it's going to impact the team dynamics, and as such the sort of productivity and what sort of comes from that. So yeah, I mean, really just sort of bearing in mind that individuals are at the heart of this. And yeah, if an individual in the team is dealing with something in their own space, are the dynamics in place to recognize and support that? Because if they're not, then, well, what's the impact on the team going to be as a whole? The second point or comments I made was just with regards to the standardized assessments and the various tools. There's so many out there, so many that are available. And my sort of word of caution with regards to any standardized tests is the how and the why are they being used. Because if they're just being used, oh, well, someone's pitched an idea and he has a great assessment tool, it's going to gauge everyone's, the team dynamics, it's going to gauge the happiness factors or whatever the case. And then what happens so often with standardized test results is that they get filed away and forgotten. So if they're going to be used, there's got to be very clear understanding from kind of those driving this as to the how and the why. Why do we want to know the, people's personal values? Because if it's just to put it on the table to do an activity to say, oh, look, guys, we all share these 3-4 values. Great. Let's work better together. Off we go. And then a week later, everyone's back to where they started. So the how and the why is so, so important for those who are managing the team, managing people, and wanting to facilitate change. I hope that helps.
Thanks,
Thank
Lloyd.
you. Yeah, I think that was a great addition to and support in terms of what we have been saying.